Hi, this is James from Inner Athlete Training, and today we're doing part 2 of training outdoors in the cold, the benefits, the risks, and the precautions. Today's going to be a convincing shoot because, man, it is cold. So welcome back to Inner Athlete Training. Today it's all about training in the cold, and today's a good brisk, I think we're at about the 35-degree mark. And yes, I'm out in a t-shirt and a shorts. And this is okay if you're out training for a short period of time. Do not recommend you being out like this all day, but to go out and get your exercise, it's all good. So last episode, we did cover some of the science. We talked about brown fat tissue versus white fat tissue and how it converts and how that helps benefit you and burn more calories. We also talked about the sun. When you're training outdoors in the wintertime, you're getting exposed to a lot more sun, which all the studies, not only do you get the vitamin D for nutritional purposes, but all the studies will out that it helps with SAD, seasonal affective disorder. So if you hibernate in the winter all year, you're far more prone to experience seasonal affective disorder and the depression that ensues from it than if you were just to go outside in the cold for a little bit, get some sunshine, get some oxygen. And there's been some studies that have shown that even when people who take cold showers, just the exposure to the cold actually helps offset their depression. And it also is an immune stimulator. The cold has actually been shown to stimulate leukocytes in the body, which are crucial for your immune function. So you have a whole plethora of benefits for being outdoors. But what we want to go into today was how to dress for it, because that's pretty important, right? So you always want to layer. If you're going to be outdoors training or hiking for a long period of time, you always want to layer. So you want to start with a thin layer like this, and best to get a dry fit type of material. Under Armour makes them, Nike makes them. They're phenomenal. I wear them a lot all the time in the summer. You could jump in a lake in dry fit shorts and a shirt, come out and be dry 15 minutes later. And the reason you want a dry fit type of material as your first layer is because it does dry quickly. It whisks away the water very quickly. So if you throw on a cotton shirt or a cotton synthetic mix, then you begin to sweat with all the other layers around you. That will not whisk away the water. You will hold that sweat, and then you will get cold and you'll have all that water retained inside your shirt. So always go with the very light type of dry fit shirts. Next, you're best off with a layer, a long sleeve. This is a long sleeve with a hoodie. But you want to put something like this on over this. So now you have an extra layer and you have some sleeves and you have a hoodie that you can put on. And then on top of that, you want to put on some kind of windbreaker, something of this sort, to keep all the immediate wind away from you. And this has a hood too. Can't go wrong with hoods, especially in the wintertime. All right, so it's always important to layer. Now, depending on your threshold for cold, you may need more layers. Some people are going to need a lot more than others, but you want to layer because you want to be able to strip that stuff off if it gets too hot and put it back on if it gets too cold. Things to be aware of when you're training outdoors in the cold. You want to make sure that you do not subject yourself to hypothermia. Hypothermia is an extremely dangerous situation. That's where the body temperature hits a very dangerously cold temperature, which I feel very close to right now. And you want to be careful of that. And some of the telltale signs of that will be very intense shivering that you can't shake. You're going to get some brain fog, some confusion, some lack of coordination. You might start to see your skin start to blister. There's all sorts of symptoms that can come up as a result of hypothermia, in which case you need to get out of the cold right away and start warming up ASAP. The other thing you want to consider when training out in the cold is the heart and the lungs particularly can be very vulnerable. So if you happen to have a pre-existing medical condition that predisposes you to inflammation in the lungs while you're training outdoors in the cold, then you might want to check with your doc to make sure everything is copacetic and you can go and train safely. Remember, it's the heart and the lungs that are at risk there. And then the other part, which is so crucial, is you need to warm up like you've never warmed up before. You just can't go out into the cold. right? Because what happens is the muscles are contracting, like mine are now, quite violently. And in the process of contracting, they tighten up and they become very, very vulnerable to injury. Think about it like a rubber band that's been in the freezer all night, and you take that out and you go to bend it and the thing's just gonna snap, right? Your muscles are not that different. You want it to be nice and warmed up, and you want a lot of elasticity in them. So some of the things you can do before you actually start your run or your bicycling or your hike are just some basic warm-up exercises. You can do lunges, you can do jumping jacks, you can do basic squats, you can do arm circles. You know, there's a whole bunch of exercises you can do to help you prep your body and get it warm and get the core temperature up. Because remember, the whole point of being outside, and one of the reasons you burn a lot of calories, is thermogenesis. So the body's trying to heat itself up. And the more you move, the more you're heating and insulating your body to match the temperature of the cold and keep you warm. Another thing to consider, you also want to make sure that when you're out in the cold, especially if you're in an environment where there's a lot of snow and there's a lot of sun reflecting, you may need sunscreen. Yes, even in the winter. So if you're going to be out for a longer period of time and you have sun blasting down on you, you still might want to put a little bit on, not too much, but just enough to prevent a burn, because you can still get burned in the winter time. The other thing is hydration. You have to make sure you're still drinking. Even though you're not sweating as much as you visibly do in the summer, doesn't mean you're not getting dehydrated. And it could be very deceptive to a lot of people in the winter time. So absolutely make sure you're staying up to date with your drinking and your hydration, because the last thing you want is to be out in the wilderness and be out in the cold and be suffering from hypothermia and dehydration. Really bad situation to be in. Is going on. So basically, the one thing you want to keep in mind when we talked about injury prevention before is the muscles contract. So if you're a sprinter and you like sprinting like I do, one thing you might want to consider is taking your sprints to the hill, because when your muscles are really cold and contracted, your glutes and your hamstrings are at great peril if you try to sprint on flat land at full speed. If you do a hill, you can get the same metabolic effect, as you can tell with my heavy breathing, and you don't risk, because you're not doing it at quite the velocity, you don't quite risk the injury that you would normally get by doing a full-out sprint when it's warmer, more temperate weather. So, injury prevention, make sure you warm up, make sure you stay hydrated, make sure you prevent hypothermia. Get out there. You want to get the sun, not only for the vitamin D, but to offset any sad season affectional disorder that may happen during the winter time. Some people are more susceptible to others, but the point is, you can never go wrong with that sun beaming on you, no matter how cold it is. Get out there for short periods of time, enjoy it, enjoy the immune stimulating effects, the health benefits, the mood elevation, and if you miss your sprinting and you miss your high intensity, just go find a good hill. There are plenty of them. So this is James from Inner Athlete Training, and we will see you next time.